A group of children, each clutching an iron rod, crawled along the sandy beach. They quivered with fear as they prodded the sand before them. Unbeknownst to many, these youngsters were on a mission to detect and disarm mines. One cautious boy carefully pried open the mine's lid, extracted the fuse, and successfully rendered it harmless. However, another boy wasn't as fortunate, leading to a harrowing explosion. This tale is a true account of Denmark in 1945, marking the end of World War II. When the German forces withdrew from Denmark after a 5-year occupation, they left a perilous legacy. Over 1.5 million mines scattered along the Danish coastline. This vast minefield posed the greatest local threat of that era. Denmark, faced with this danger, decided to entrust the task of locating and disarming these mines to 2,000 German prisoners of war, many of whom were teenagers. They had no specialized equipment and had to rely on their bare hands to handle these explosive devices. Danish soldiers initiated preliminary training to prepare them for this perilous endeavor. In theoretical instruction, images were presented to each boy. Later, they faced real mines for hands-on practice in a confined room. The first boy entered with caution, skillfully disarming the mine and defusing the threat. The second, overwhelmed by fear, trembled but managed to safely remove and move the mine outside. Tragedy struck as the next person failed, leading to a deadly explosion. The remaining individuals, trembling with trepidation, lined up for their turn in a perilous classroom. These 11 young boys had received minimal training and were deployed on Denmark's western coast. Watched by Danish Sergeant Karl, who despised Nazism, they were mostly teenagers, some barely in their teens. In their early teens, including a pair of twins, these boys were seen by someone like Karl, who despised Nazism, as young German soldiers and tools for mine clearance. Karl gestured to the distant sandy beach, home to 45,000 buried mines. He laid out their task, disarmed 6 mines every hour, and in 3 months, they could return home. The boys wasted no time, lying on the sand, inching forward with just iron rods for probing. Ernst, one of the twins, applied his training knowledge to disarm the first mine. The initial day of clearing went smoothly, without casualties. They prepared makeshift bedding with dry grass and cloth bags, and discussed their plans for returning home, a powerful motivator. Only one member of the group, while some of the children harbored doubts about Karl's commitment to their return home, the rest held on to their belief that he would follow through. Food was not provided, and hunger gnawed at them. Ernst, however, noticed a Danish girl nearby and struck up a conversation. Upon learning her doll was injured, he used cotton to bandage it, earning the gratitude of the girl's mother, who offered a loaf of bread. Ernst shared it with his brother under the cover of the night. Karl, concerned about their escape, locked them in a wooden house, barricading the door with beams. The following day, weakened by hunger, their work progressed slowly. Schumann, inquiring about food, received a calm response from Karl, who hinted at the Germans' unwillingness displayed a shocking indifference, uncaring whether the boys perished from mines or hunger. After his heartless pronouncement, he quickly ushered them back into their wooden prison. Desperation took hold as hunger grew, and Helmut pried a plank from the wall, sneaking out to search for food. The following morning, Ernst's condition deteriorated with fever and nausea, but Karl showed no mercy, compelling them to work without respite. The children, reluctantly resuming their tasks, watched as Wilhelm fell ill too, struggling to control his vomiting. A horrific explosion severed both of Wilhelm's arms, eliciting cries of pain and a desperate plea to go home. Ernst's call for help echoed, but nearby, a woman from a farm coldly shut her door, leaving them trapped in this dire situation. Sitting within the house, seemingly unmoved by the children's cries, Karl's heart stirred only when he heard Wilhelm's desperate plea for his mother. Unable to ignore their suffering any longer, he ventured outside, administering a sedative to the distressed boy. Perhaps it was that poignant cry for a home that humanized the children in Karl's eyes, reminding him they were not just soldiers, but also innocent youngsters. He rushed Wilhelm to the hospital as more children began displaying similar symptoms. Collective vomiting revealed Helmut's confession that he'd sought grains from a nearby farm the previous night due to extreme hunger. When Karl inquired, The farm woman admitted the grains were tainted with mouse droppings and took pleasure in the German suffering. Karl's remedy was to have the children fetch seawater and drink until they expelled the contaminated grains, a bitter lesson in survival. Once he completed his tasks, Karl showered the boys with care. He visited Wilhelm in the hospital, only to learn from the nurse that the boy had passed away shortly after his arrival. Overwhelmed with guilt for not allowing the children to eat secretly, Karl resorted to pilfering bread from the military supplies meant for them, an action observed by the lieutenant. He discreetly placed the bread in front of the door and called the children to wake up, pretending nothing had occurred. Starving and hopeful, the children eagerly devoured the unexpected sustenance. Karl, seizing the opportunity, informed them that Wilhelm's wounds were healing swiftly, kindling joy in their hearts. Despite the loss of one comrade, the children rallied, each tasked with disarming 8 mines within an hour. While they worked, they chatted cheerfully about their aspirations for the future. Upon their return home, these children bore no complaints or accusations, for they understood they were atoning for the sins of other German soldiers. One evening, an inebriated group of soldiers harassed these youngsters, who trembled in fear, unable to retaliate. Their comrades rushed to intervene, but the drunken soldiers brandished their firearms. As they were on the brink of violence, Karl interceded, asserting that killing these children meant using their people to disarm the mines. Frustrated, the soldiers, along with the lieutenant, departed, cautioning Karl not to forget the past actions of the Germans in their country. Karl emphasized that these children were oblivious to the historical context and the presence of the mines. The following day, Schumann discovered a double mine designed to target mine clearers specifically. He urgently warned everyone to exercise caution, but his cries fell on deaf ears. Unbeknownst to Werner, he felt a sense of accomplishment after successfully disarming a mine. Ernst's frantic warning about the double mine went unheeded as it detonated, shattering his brother. Amidst the settling dust, Ernst desperately called out, but his brother was gone. Karl rushed to the tragic scene, but there was no recourse. A grief-stricken Ernst was inconsolable, yearning to go back and find his lost sibling. Administering another sedative, Karl sat by the anguished boy, realizing that before him stood not a member of the Nazi regime, but a helpless child, longing to return home, yet tragically bereaved. Karl confessed to Schumann, admitting he had lied about Wilhelm. Schumann, already aware, understood the boy's simple desire to clear all the mines and return home. For the first time, Karl uttered a reassuring sentence, "Don't worry, you'll be all right." That night, the door remained unlocked. Karl drove to the military supply for bread, bringing some relief to the children. The following day, he granted them a welcome rest, and they rejoiced by playing soccer together on the beach. However, an explosion shattered the newfound happiness as Karl's pet dog fell victim to a mine in an area supposedly cleared. Karl, consumed by anger, believed the children had deceived him, the Nazis having already taken his loved ones and now his beloved dog. His resentment resurfaced, reverting him to his former hateful self towards the Nazis. The mine-clearing supervisor asserted that all marked mines were removed, and the count was accurate, but Karl dismissed him contemptuously, treating him like a dog. He ordered the man to kneel and learn to bark, losing faith in his competence and demanding a recheck of the cleared area. When one boy protested, Karl's fury erupted, leading to sandy beach slaps. The children, standing united, used their bodies to probe for remaining mines. Disheartened by Karl's mistreatment, the boy who had been slapped fled. Yet, Schumann clung to hope that clearing all the mines would lead to their return home. The following day, a woman from the farm urgently rushed to the house, her tearful pleas for help drawing the boys outside. It transpired that her daughter had ventured into a perilous minefield to play. Schumann swiftly prepared to clear the mines, displaying remarkable courage. Meanwhile, Karl discovered the wide-open door of the house, with only Ernst remaining inside. He assumed the others had fled. On the beach, Karl encountered the boys working tirelessly to rescue the girl. Ernst, undaunted, crossed the protective barrier and went directly to the girl's side, offering comfort, much as he had tended to her doll earlier. The girl touched his hand gently as if to console him. Ernst handed her over to Schumann and, in the face of calls to return, simply smiled and shook his head, reflecting a profound sense of peace and acceptance. Ernst nodded silently, his gaze resolute, before venturing into the minefield. In a poignant act, he had chosen to rejoin his departed brother, embracing an emotional farewell. Schumann, their unyielding spirit, couldn't stifle his tears. Karl tried to console him, offering assurances that they were finally going home. In solitude, Karl contemplated the youthful lives sacrificed during their harrowing journey, the weight of his emotions palpable. After 3 arduous months, they had concluded their mission and were on the verge of returning home. 6 children loaded the last mines onto a truck, their voices alive with dreams and aspirations. However, a colossal explosion shattered the sky, cloaking it in a veil of black smoke. Karl and his companions rushed to the scene, only to find a desolate pile of rubble. The 4 remaining boys had fulfilled their mission within the deadline, yet their young faces bore no traces of joy or happiness. The mother and daughter watched the truck depart from the farm, only to find them transported to a larger minefield, home to 72,000 mines. The promises of returning home had all been deceitful. There was never an intention to ensure the children's safe return. Even Karl had been duped, attempting to use threats to secure their release in his determination to fulfill his pledge to the boys. Yet, the higher-ups remained unyielding. The leader of the mine-clearing team received a letter, and the 4 children, called by their names, were extracted from the line and ushered onto a vehicle with an unknown destination. Eventually, they spotted Karl, who, true to his promise, had brought them close to the border, granting them a chance to find their way back to their homeland. Karl made a resolute decision to issue a false order, intentionally facilitating the release of the 4 surviving children. The mine-clearing operation concluded, granting the children a path to cross the border and find their way back to their homeland. From a soldier's perspective, it could be seen as a breach of orders, but from a human standpoint, Karl's act of kindness overshadowed the cruelty of war. Through these children, he managed to disarm the bombs of hatred within himself. This marks the poignant end of the film.